What is up, my fellow conspirator and conspirators? It is, of course, I, your boy, Matty Milligan, and this is episode number 30 of the Underground Marketing Conspiracy. Woo! Pretty stoked that it's episode 30, and it feels like time has just flown by, and this is really just the tip of the iceberg thus far, as we've only just begun. So today I want to talk about the soap opera sequence. The number one mistake I see people doing right now is not adding a soap opera email sequence to their opt-in forms and squeeze pages and landing pages. When you collect someone's email, the goal of this is to build a relationship with that person, right? Gain their trust, further that bond and strengthen it. And basically you start to nurture that relationship. A lot of the time they call this the indoctrination sequence, but that's kind of rigid in my mind, so I do like the term relationship building. But when you look at the name, the soap opera sequence, why is it called this? And what really is a soap opera? Maybe you're not even familiar with soap operas. Maybe you don't live in the United States where these are very popular. So soap operas were originally actually created in the 30s and 40s for mainly targeting women when they were watching TV during the daytime, when all of their husbands were at work. And the main reason they're called soap operas is because Procter and Gamble actually sold soap in between the little segments, right? And they would basically have to get people to watching. What they do is at the end of each sequence, it leaves you really on a cliffhanger, right? And it hooks you in. So you watch that ad and then you return and you kind of keep watching and consuming as much as possible, and you keep coming back every day. Now, there's all sorts of these different shows. There's like Days of Our Lives. I think there's like All My Children, Another World. What's that one? Young and the Restless. And then there's all these British ones like EastEnders and Coronation Street. In fact, sometimes I'll even watch Coronation Street just to see the way that they transition into it. And it's very entertaining, I must say, in terms of a show. There's all sorts of different characters, and they have different plot lines and storylines happening simultaneously. And it really hooks you in. And they're really good at building really these characters and talking about a lot of issues that are happening in society at the moment. But what they're really good at doing is ending these segments on a cliffhanger, right? So you're hooking someone in and really bringing them in. But I think that's what a lot of people aren't really good at doing in their emails. When I see them, it's like you need to leave them at the end where they're wanting more, right? Each email really needs to just give someone a little bit of a taste. And it's like you want them, right? It's like maybe there's a favorite show that you have, for example, where maybe you watch it once per week and it's 30 minutes long, and it's like your show, right? And you must watch it the next night or the next week at that same time. There must be something where it ends like that. The show Lost was absolutely amazing at this, right? They would leave you on some like shocking thing that would happen at the end of the episode and then wrap it up with this like massive like kind of like a suction sound where it's like, and then just like, and then just show the big lost symbol, right? And this is like the most effective thing. And you're introducing new things as well at the end of each episode, where maybe you're introducing something new, like you're opening a loop at the end of an episode and bringing them there. I remember Breaking Bad as well was really good at that. And what they did was very interesting was they would, in some cases, open up a loop at the beginning of an episode and then end it at the end. But at the same time, by doing that, they were introducing a new storyline based on an event that happened. I remember there was a scene, for example, one of the episodes was this kid riding a motorcycle. And at the beginning of the episode, you just see him riding around in the New Mexico desert, and there's this tarantula, and he goes up and he takes a jar and he puts it in there and he looks at it. It's like, oh, cool. And then they have the Breaking Bad titles, right? That like music that they have at the beginning, which shows that smoky green Breaking Bad logo. Then at the end of the episode, it's like this train heist that happens that episode where they basically jack this train and steal a bunch of methylamine and put it in these underground tanks. And again, that's super Breaking Bad storyline, which is what makes that show my favorite show of all time. And sure enough, at the end, that kid, after they've robbed it, they're like, oh, we're good to go, right? Because they're robbing a train. That kid, you just see him in the distance on his bike. And then sure enough, this one dude, Todd, like takes out his gun and just shoots the kid. And it's like, it ends again that one loop, but it opens up this new one where it's like, what are they going to do? Like, he just totally shot a kid, right? And then the jar falls to the ground, breaks, and the little tarantula basically like gets out of there. Oh no, sorry, at the end it actually just goes to the ground and it stays in there. But again, the whole show opened on that tarantula, or that kid with his bike catching the tarantula, and then it ends on that, right? And then there's another one as well, I believe, in Breaking Bad, where what ends up happening is one of the episodes, there's like some dude going through, there's like a couple of guys with their bags going up this river and stuff, and you can clearly tell that they're crossing the US Mexico border. And one of them like looks and he's like, what is that? And he picks up this item, and it's this like gold and diamond grill in this cube. And then throughout the episode, you hear that the character Hank basically caught this guy Tuco, and they put his grill in that little cube. And at the end of the episode, they show Hank, and he's super mad. And he takes the cube and just chucks it in the river. And sure enough, that closes that loop, right? So you want to have that in your email sequences. And this is what people pay me all the time to do, and this is why I really think that I've become good at it, because I've consumed a lot of stuff and I really understand the plot lines, and I'm a huge reader as well, and I'm always educating myself on storytelling. And I wasn't good at this growing up at all, and I still don't think I'm like great at it, but I still think I'm pretty good at storytelling. And again, this is how I recommend and how I kind of structure the emails. It varies. I like to have longer ones. Like, as you write more emails, the more and more of a follow-up you have with someone, the further you can really build that bond. And you can have those call to actions in your PS and PPSs and PPPSs and PPPSs at the end of each episode, or at the end of each email, sorry. So what I like to do is first email when someone opts into my list right away. Like, I'm just going to welcome them and set expectations. Like, that's it. It's like, hey, welcome. Like, hey you. The only time I'm going to use hey you is in that email. Like, hey, first name, or even then it's just like, hey, what's up? I don't like using those pre-filled fields like first name, last name, or even complete name. I just assume familiarity in my emails. I don't even open with hey in a lot of cases. I just go into the content, right? It's like, because again, I want to see that person. When I send them that email, they're going to see the subject, and they're going to see a preview, unless I can override that, but they're going to see a little preview of that. And again, I'm not going to have like, hey, you, because that's already in there, in that subject line, usually in that first email. So, or in those future emails. So first one, again, is just to welcome them and really just set the expectation. So it's like, hey, it's me. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to send you an email. It's me from here. If you want to get your free thing that I'm giving you, here's the link to get to that. Here's some link to my social media. Here's what to expect. I'm going to be sending you an email every 24 hours for the next X amount of days, just talking about myself, sharing some case studies, educating you, answering some common questions that you might have, and sharing a lot of useful content. You know, tomorrow I'm going to send it. The subject is this. Check this out. Have yourself a great day. So that's email number one. Number two is I'm going to talk about the person and really just use what's called the attractive character, which is a concept where you're really just telling your backstory and talking about yourself and sharing, basically telling that backstory and how it has context for what you do and really what you're selling. And again, this is where it's like, hey, I was at, this point. And again, this is where that storytelling and that soap opera those storylines really come into play, where it's like, hey, you're introducing a character, you're talking about kind of the backstory from where they were originally coming from, and then you're talking about this big wall that they hit, where it's like, oh, and I was just going about my life, and then this event happened, and that's when I knew everything was never going to be the same. And you know what? I'm going to tell you about that in tomorrow's email. So that's email number two, where it's like you're talking about yourself, but then you're basically just, again, having that wall where it's like, I hit that point where it's like nothing could move forward. Then what I'm going to talk about is, it's like, okay, here's in email three is how I actually overcame that. And this is where this thing called the Epiphany Bridge comes into play, where you're basically talking about that point when you realized, when you had that epiphany moment where you're like, oh, like I tried this, I tried that, and then suddenly like I found this book, or I watched this video, or I saw something in the news, or someone told me about something, and I was like very hesitant at first, but because I tried so much stuff in the past and it just wasn't for me, and I just had all these false beliefs, so I was like, you know what, like let's just give it a try. And sure enough, this was the one thing that helped me really overcome everything. And from then on, I realized, I'm like, okay, this is it. Like, if someone has that same problem, this is the thing that's going to help them. And I'm going to show them the way and lead them up to the top of the mountain. So that's boom. All right. Now, that's my first 3 emails. Whatever I do afterwards, it depends on what kind of business it is, but I'm usually just going to have like an email about like, hey, here's a testimonial. Like, I think that's usually the next one that I send. It's like, hey, here's a testimonial. Here's, another free thing that I can give you as well. Here's like an awesome video I created on YouTube. Here's like my top 10 best podcast episodes. Here's my best blogs. Here's some free stuff that you can have. Here's content. Here, you guys have been asking me this question. Here's the answer. You're basically just, again, sharing all sorts of different stories. And again, that's how I have those first 3 emails, as you can see. And in some cases, I'll have those mini stories as well in there, where that's really where those like daily Seinfeld emails come in, because something will happen in your life and you're like, oh, I need to tell my list about this, and it has perfect context for what I do. That's the perfect time to tell that. The thing is, the reason why you're getting people on your email list is to tell them that story, but you can do that as well in your social media posts. So use the soap opera sequence in your emails to really build that and solidify that bond between yourself and that person that you don't know, right? Because the whole point of this is to get them, to turn them from like cold, which means they don't know who you are, they're not familiar with who you are, they might not even be aware that they have their problem. You're warming them up throughout the process. So they're like, okay, like I understand this person now, they're warming up to you, right? And then eventually they become a hot customer where they like love you. And this whole sequence needs to be polarizing, because there are going to be people who opt in, they read your emails, like, I don't like this person, opt out, and that's fine. Like that's really what you want to do, right? You want to polarize people so that people like not necessarily hate or despise you, but like, they don't gel with what you're saying and they're just not a good fit and their vibe and yours just will never work. You want to find those people that are attracted to you because they're like, whoa, like this person has an awesome vibe. I love what they're talking about. They're providing me with value based on what I see as value. And I'm going to, and basically you're converting those people into, again, cold, warm, into hot. Where that way, when you do make them an offer in the future for something, they'll be likely to reciprocate because you've brought them so much value thus far. And again, you can do this on social media, right? One of my favorite like campaigns, and I tell people about this and they never do it, is like creating videos, boosting it as a video view campaign in Facebook and YouTube, and just like showing it to as many people as possible. No call to action, just like it needs to be a good video where you're providing a lot of value, and then retargeting with the second and third and fourth. Like you can take the soap opera sequence, shoot a bunch of videos, and then run retargeting campaigns on Facebook where it's like, oh, people that watch a certain percentage of video 1, they can only see video 2. And then for video 3, people need to have watched a certain percentage of 1 and 2, both of those, like 60%, 70% more, to see number 3. And then again, you just put them along there. That way, again, you're building that bond between people, you're qualifying them, you're seeing how engaged they are, and then eventually when you do make them an offer, it's like a no-brainer, right? So that's really the best way to write a soap opera sequence, and do a little bit of research as well, I think, on just soap operas in general. Maybe go on YouTube or, I don't know, search like best soap opera storylines. There's some absolutely ridiculous ones, so obviously don't use those, but kind of see, this way you get into the mental space too of people and really just see why they're engaged with that kind of stuff. Because some of these soap operas have been around for a really long time and they're very celebrated, and sure, a lot of people that you see in Hollywood, like they get their acting career start on these soap operas as well. So you kind of see these up and comers, and look at different ones as well in different countries. Like look at ones that exist in Britain and then look at ones that exist in the United States, and really just see how they differ. And I think for a lot of dudes, especially when they hear about this, they're going to be like, oh, I'm not watching these soap operas. Like, it's like, dude, your thinking is too rigid. You need to just kind of, look at other things, right? This is with me. I always do this stuff as a thought experiment where I look at something and see, okay, like, what can I learn from this, right? So that's where I'll look outside of the box for something that I usually wouldn't consume, right? Something that's usually, I guess, considered a little bit more feminine. I'll look at that and be like, okay, like, what can I take and use that? And again, for me, in a lot of cases, especially when I'm writing email sequences for women, which I'm in the process of doing right now, it just helps me understand like them better. And I'm a guy, I'll never understand women. I'm not making that claim. I don't know anything about women. All right, let's just get that out of the way. But I think like I can write decent emails and really tell that story and really again build that bond between people and really again share the story of that attractive character with the audience. And then eventually again, when you are going to make them an offer, and again, the offer is going to be something that helps them in the future. So what you're talking about in your emails needs to have context for what the offer will eventually be, because it's all leading up to that. And again, that way you kind of guide the person down that path. And then eventually, if they don't purchase from you during that first journey, that's why you have those weekly or daily Seinfeld emails where you're just talking about something and sending it to them. And those Seinfeld emails, as I talked with Peter Tarr about, those are the emails where, again, you're providing value with people, right? You're not making an offer in every single one. And it's funny because I'm going to be doing an episode on Black Friday. What I'm thinking of doing actually is doing a whole week-long series of videos for Black Friday. Because what used to happen at Shopify is we would start talking with people about Black Friday in like I would at least in July and August. I'd be like, cool, like, you know, you're going to make the most amount of your money in Black Friday. So what are you doing to think about that right now? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And I'm always like, oh man. So this is where it's like, all right, have something leading up to Black Friday, like the 2 weeks before, or even then like the 2 or 3 weeks before, just like provide your audience with so much value. And then when Black Friday comes, you're already inside of their head. You've already provided them with value. It's like a no-brainer, make them an offer. It's the same way what I would do is if I were in the world of weight loss and fitness is I would provide a lot of value in the month of December because this is the month where people are going to consume lots and lots of food. People pack on a little bit of weight in December, right? It's the holidays. You've worked really hard. You kind of deserve to just eat a little bit more comfort food, right? And you know, stuff yourself in some cases. And I've been guilty of that myself. And then in the new year, people are like, all right, I really need to get back on the iron horse and start training again. So what happens is if you have a lot of content with those, like in November and December, leading up to the big time of the year when people buy fitness products, and I know this because I believe it's like the shopping channel, like they only run those weight loss products, like run 80-90% of weight loss products in that month, because I used to work for a company where, again, that's what they would tell them, and that's how I learned that. So I would run the campaigns again. Really, this is like long-term thinking, right? Because so many people make the mistake of trying to sell something right away. And the point of these emails, again, is to really just build that bond and break a lot of people's false beliefs and limiting beliefs and overcome the objections they have. And again, I would start with having that initial email sequence and then changing that as you go. At first, it can just be 5 emails. That's absolutely fine. One thing you can also have is if you do have a self-liquidating offer where you're giving away something for free and then trying to sell something very inexpensive just to break even on your ad costs to basically acquire customers for free, have an urgency date on the email. I like to do this too, where if it's a 7-day email sequence that I set up, I'll make that special offer on that video and I'll create that on one page, right? So like page 1 is opt-in page 2 is like the thank you page with that self-liquidating offer. And this is usually, again, anything from like $27 to $97. And it's not a very expensive offer. And then there's obviously like a thank you page as well after that, right? Like an order confirmation page if they do buy. And there's also one where if they don't buy. And what I'll have though is I'll set up one page where I'll have that same video just really with a headline though, like the headline is changed. And then that way in each of those emails, it's always going to that page where they can watch that same video sales letter or webinar or auto webinar, evergreen webinar. And this way, again, from that page, they can click on there and then place their order, right? This is really important for affiliate marketing, by the way, if you do have those follow-up sequences, because you can't have those affiliate links in your emails because it's going to get marked as spam right away. So this is where you can just host those links. And again, have a video talking about that, where you're making that same offer. And it can even be, like I said, the same video on that page. But this is really important with your follow-up strategy. And again, eventually, I've seen some email things where they're like 60 days long, where when you opt in, it's like an email every day. When I opted into Frank Kern's, dude, this guy blasted me with like 40 emails in the first week. It was ridiculous. And I was just like, all right, like, Let's set up just a folder for Frank Kern stuff, and then I can go through it and read it at my own leisure when I do get a chance. And even then, I gave them my phone number as well, and some dude has been calling me, harassing me on the phone. I'm just like, all right, like one of these Cardone closer dudes, and I'm just like, all right, dude, just leave me alone, like please. I need my own headspace, and he's probably a good guy, I'm sure, but it's just something. So again, the way I like to do things is I really like to build a relationship kind of in those emails and really just tell that story. So hope you found this video very useful today. I have a few guests coming up. There might be one on the next episode, but it'll probably be in a few episodes at this point, to be honest. And if you did like this episode, I want you to consider going back and watching maybe several episodes, maybe just watching one or two, really your decision when you have a chance. And also consider subscribing wherever you are listening to this podcast. Maybe you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe there. Maybe it's iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, SoundCloud. Wherever you are consuming this content, I want you to subscribe right now. And of course, I will see you next time on another episode of the Underground Marketing Conspiracy. Whoa!